Wait. I thought I turned off the camera. Wait, hold on. I can explain. Oh, wait, I can explain. Wait. No one needs to know. Moving on, looks like we'll be tackling the Mega Man Zero series today. A set of games that, much like the X series, I've actually been meaning to cover these for a while now, and one that Keiji Inafune was dead set on making since the early days of Mega Man X5, believe it or not. Hell, maybe even beforehand. It's no secret to those in the Mega Man community that Inafune's favorite character of the franchise was Zero, and initially had him planned to be the X design during the concept art phase. Of course, that ended up being Zero himself, and the new design for X was more of an upgraded version of the classic design, but Inafune really wanted something for the character he cherished so damn much. Who can blame him, honestly, with that golden lock of hair? Damn, I think I get Iris and Layer now. Back when Mega Man X5 was released in 2000, Inafune intended that it would be the end of the X series and continue his ventures with Zero onwards. At least that was the intention, as it wasn't until later that Capcom decided to make more X games that Inafune was left there with his dick in his hand. It wasn't like this was stopping Inafune though, as the classic games were still around by the time Mega Man X was rolling store shelves back in the SNES days, and during the PS1 era, we had the Legends games for a new experience. And by the time the Zero series was added to the list, there was the Battle Network games up and about on the GBA already, so you had your variety of Mega Man content by this very point in time. I think it's pretty cool how a lot of people like myself grew up as a kid or teenager during the early to mid 2000s and just seeing a lot of Mega Man content on a year-to-year basis, no less, and I kinda wish we had more of that nowadays with the Blue Bomber. That said, Inafune began working on the Zero series alongside its developers Inti Creates, who would go on and help develop the game into what it is today. I know nowadays we associate Inti Creates with some of its more original titles, that being the Asher Gunvolt games, which I do hope to cover at some point in the near future. Lord knows when, with the amount of Mega Man content I've been indulging, and considering that I did cover 30XX before, which you should totally check out after this video, it makes sense to one day cover these. But today, we're only going to be talking about Zero and his debut as the main protagonist of this series, and I gotta say, what hell of a debut. Now, considering that these are by and large Mega Man games, gameplay isn't something that dramatically different from its counterpart, at least if you exclude Mega Man Legends, Star Force, and Battle Network, that is. When it came down to covering the Zero series, well, my initial thought was to cover all 4 games into one large video, but then after beating Zero 1 and seeing the credits roll at around close to midnight, I said to myself, yeah, I think this is good enough, and didn't want to jump into Zero 2 right away afterwards. Probably because I'm swamped with so many other games to cover. I really would have loved to have made a large video on the Zero series as a whole, but that would mean having to wait a little longer for that video to arrive, and I kind of don't want to do that to you guys, and I think for me at least, it's better this way since I can talk about each and every game a lot more and just demonstrate what each of these games have and don't have in a much better fashion. As the means of recording footage, I went ahead and used the Legacy Collection that also comes bundled with the ZX games for easier access, which, to jump ahead a bit, I will be doing the same for the ZX series in the future. I know for a lot of the purists out there, this does mean the higher color contrast and saturation is a pain in the eyes, and you know what? I totally get that. I mean, looking at footage of the original games back in their GBA glory, I understand that in some cases, the original looks more appealing, and in the Zero Collection on the DS, all the more so. Despite these sentiments though, I still wanted to record on something that was more consistent and get some mileage off of my Switch since it's out there collecting dust, so onto the Legacy Collection I went, and honestly, I still had a great time with the graphical fidelity. Again, it is nothing like the original GBA version, and no CRT filter is gonna prove that it's capable of replicating all that, but for what it gave in the collection, it was still a solid time overall. But goddamn Capcom, please get rid of that stupid HD filter. I swear no one uses this, and it's a sore in the eyes no matter what you have to say at the end of the day. Whoever uses this filter is a different breed entirely, man. Having said all that now, I think it's finally time for us to dive into Mega Man Zero here, so obviously we gotta start with the first game, am I right? Set about 100 years after the events of the X series, when exactly I can't even say, Zero 1 starts us off with a scientist named Seal awakening our legendary swordsman who, goddamn, I think he's seen better days. But now being awakened to the line of duty once again, Zero takes action with his trusty Buster and Z-Saber, taking the helm as the Resistance main warrior, a group of exile Reploids who bear no real importance to the plot if I'm being honest, given how little they do in the first place. Talk about the definition of useless. As Zero works with the Resistance to uncover his memories after being in a coma for a century, since yeah, that does things to a person, Zero also learns about Neo Arcadia, a society of both humans and Reploids that seemingly live in harmony. In reality, that harmony is a result of an iron fist of will that believes any Reploids that doesn't cooperate with Neo Arcadia's ideals are considered to be mavericks, completely negating the so-called free will that Dr. Light wished for them in the first place. This iron fist of rule is all thanks to our dear friend X, who seems to be alive and well, but isn't really the same as we remembered him back in the Mega Man X days. That's because this isn't X at all, but rather a copy of him that was created by Seal, all to lead Neo Arcadia after the original X took some time off with other projects that we'll talk more in details as we go on with the series. Now I have to be completely honest here, I don't like Copy X, and to jump ahead a bit for the series, I like how he's curb stomped to side character status because of how irrelevant he gets after this one. Yeah, that's what you get for being a faker, you son of a bitch! There's even these 4 Reploids called the Guardians that are sworn to protect Copy X and do his bidding outside of Neo Arcadia, causing Zero all sorts of trouble as he no doubt tries to do his usual heroics. I always found these guys to be really cool in their design first off, and I like how with the new art style they went for this game, it shows that even more. In some ways, they even look like X if he had different armor sets like back in the X games, and if that was the intention, well, I really can't tell you. Except for Leviathan here, who just straight up looks like a female version of X, but hey, despite that, I still find her design to be cool as hell and nothing more. But as usual, Zero comes out on top after facing the 4 Guardians and the clone of his former best friend, no matter the form, and proceeds to keep the fight going for the sake of the Resistance and for the world at large. Pretty typical of your average Mega Man plotline if you ask me, but this is basically the start of the Zero series. Simple and straightforward, I like the direction Capcom went for this one. It's got the grittiness of the X series down while also adding its own edgy nature to it thanks to Zero being the main protagonist, who I wish emoted more of his dialogue. He's more stoic here, which spoiler alert, he's gonna be like this for the rest of the series, and while I understand this was the intention with him in this game, I don't buy his attitude one bit in the broader scheme of things. Zero, from what I remember back in the X games, wasn't stoic at all, but he was serious with a side of charisma and cockiness to him that counter X's more calm and methodical approach. Here, he's more of a cardboard cutout of the edgy amnesiac that I don't mind as a means to introduce Zero to newcomers playing a Mega Man game, but as someone who is a veteran like me, it's off-putting. He has his cocky moments, no doubt, throughout the course of the game, especially after kicking Copy X's ass and telling how inferior he is to the original one, but aside from that, there wasn't anything that resonated with me about him. What really stole the show for me in the character department was the 4 Guardians actually, though as cliche as they are in their traits, they do a pretty good job at reminding Zero that they're not to be easily trifled with. Personal highlights are always the encounters with Fafnir and Leviathan, as they are more to tease Zero rather than actually be malicious towards him, while Harpuya seems to be more of the straight man and wants to fulfill his mission to copy X and defeat Zero, all for the honor of Neo Arcadia, blah blah blah. And Phantom here just blows himself up. What the fuck? As we further progress through the series, no doubt they'll play a bigger part in terms of plot and story here, but in terms of their initial debut for this game, I think they did one hell of a good job. But enough about the plot, let's talk about gameplay here, and with Zero 1, man, it's as good as it can get. I should stress this isn't my first time playing the Zero games, as I dipped my toes on this series back when the Legacy Collections released 4 years ago, and once streamed them back in January. If you want, I recommend you check those streams out, as I had a lot of fun playing those games on stream, and I even showcased some of my prowess as a voice actor too. Now, I'm Aztec Falcon. Harpunia, the Guardian sent me to clean your ass up, boy. I am one of the 4 Guardians of Master X. Fafnir was one you fought, and he said that he was feeling very hard. However, a lost legend should remain lost. In your case, I will beat your ass. What? No, I don't know where my brain goes with all of this, but just know that if you want more of that, you're gonna want to like and subscribe. That said, my overall experience with this game is well-rounded, enough for me to get things going and know what to do from start to finish, with a couple of things that sure as hell annoyed me here and there, regardless of how many times I play this. Like the screen crunch, let's talk about that first, because my god, it was certainly something to experience. It's not terrible, really, you do have some nice horizontal range when you're going through the motions, but the verticality is where things mess me up big time. Lots of trust issues when I had to go up and down in platforming because the vertical real estate was a pain in in the ass in his reliability, making you second guess everything in terms of the bottomless pit scenarios and enemies looking to get a cheap shot at you every now and then. Like this section here, like what the hell is this? And this game, well, the whole series for that matter, loves to respawn enemies when you're far away from them, and in those vertical sections, it makes for one annoying ass time. I recommend that you turn on the save assist feature if you are playing the Legacy collections, as this does give Zero more checkpoints to work with and act as an infinite life system to mitigate all of that. It doesn't remove the difficulty like the Rookie Hunter mode feature in the X collections, and honestly, because of the screen crunch and damage you take from regular enemies, it definitely helps to get a move on, especially since you're going to be dying a lot in this game too. The Zero series also dons a more 30-bit 2-sprite work designed from the PS1 days, with a brand new art direction that I think I enjoy for this era of Mega Man specifically. While the gang looks less robot-like and more anime humans, I didn't mind this drastic change for Zero. To me, it kind of puts him in a good spot alongside its X counterpart design, which I still think retains its identity while again keeping to a much different approach. Plus, I think it just suits well for the handheld structure for this game, period. Seriously, for as much as I brushed off the fact that Inti Creates of all people helped develop these games, I have to commend just how well they made this one, as it holds very well even today. As I said back in my Pokemon Emerald review, I never grew up with the GBA as many out there did. I was always a DS kid, and so seeing these games now in an era where almost every single game developer out there kind of wants to blow up your PC with high quality graphics, it's just nice to go back to simpler times. Regarding stage layouts, well, it's standard Mega Man affairs to some capacity. You got your room to breathe and dash, attack, and head towards the end to beat the Maverick of the Week, but there's not a lot that I can say here is different other than the aesthetics they went for this one. It's more dystopian-like and gives me more of the vibes of the X4 opening stage, and there's not a lot here that spoke to me. From a factory stage with the bottomless pit scenarios I mentioned earlier to a scorching desert that has an underground facility at the bottom with a Repliforce ship, I think that was a neat reference. The outskirts of Neo Arcadia and the Jazz, all of these are fine stages, but nothing left me impressed in the end. Zero in combat is back to his usual ground dashing and wall climbing, but now he's got more tricks up his sleeves in terms of his arsenal. He's got his trusty Z-Saber like before for close range combat alongside his rolling edge ability, but now he can charge it to deal even more devastating blows to his enemies. And what's cool about using it in this game, and I found this to be the most satisfying, is when you slice up an enemy, you see them visually get sliced in half, making for one cool ass animation the more I progress. It's so cool visually, and I love seeing them be all cut up like that and then explode into a glorious blaze. It's awesome. There's a Z-Buster, which acts as his long-range weapon like in the X and original games, being able to charge up as well. Nothing really to say more about this one other than it's great to see an old reliable, and couldn't be more happier to see it as part of Zero's overall gameplay. But alongside these two weapons is that exclusive for this game, you also got the Triple Rod, a staff-like weapon that acts for mid-range combat and when charged allows Zero to do this cool spinning maneuver that I've only used properly for like one boss fight. It's good enough as a third option and the such, and honestly, I think I got more mileage out of it than the shield boomerang. It can deflect bullets and when charged, be thrown at enemies, and if you time it right, you can throw it like Captain America, which kinda looks fun if I'm being honest, but man was it annoying to pull off in actual combat. I'm not used to these two melee weapons as much as the Z-Saber honestly, but it's cool to see Zero have as much coverage for both styles of gameplay, making him a combination of X and Zero from the previous games. Maybe that's why the game's called Mega Man Zero. Zero, as he progresses through the game, will also obtain these elemental chips, acting as sort of additional power-ups that allow his weapons to be of a different flavor each time. They're nothing special really other than just giving Zero lightning, fire, and ice abilities that can act as boss weaknesses like in the previous games. I understand that because this game was on the GBA, they didn't want to give Zero too much to work with like in the X series, but I wish there was more to them than just a charge-up weapon. It just makes him feel like a lesser Zero by extension when it comes to his arsenal of special moves compared to his X days where you had more of a kick out of his moveset and special abilities. You can consider these in some ways as the special weapons from the previous games, being used to deal more damage to a boss fight like before. It's just, again, it's not as satisfying compared to what X and Zero pulled off in the past, but it gets the job done and can't really complain much on that front. The boss fights were fine here as well. Can't really say much honestly because again with the elemental chips, if you hit them with their weaknesses, they go down instantly. So they never left me with any real impression compared to the X games. Their designs are cool. I admit I'll give them that, you know, like the Anubis guy and the weird ice elk thing. I forgot their names honestly. And there was also this elephant guy who did these mean palms, and at the beginning of the game, there's this falcon looking looking thing too. I know for that boss in particular, I gave him a cowboy accent and edited a PNG of him with a cowboy hat, so now I can't unsee it. The boss fights that I did enjoy were the Guardians naturally, as those felt like traditional Mega Man fights with some small doses of cocaine in their systems. They can be challenging if you don't use their weakness properly, and even if you do, they're nothing like the other boss fights as they can tank hits and still give you something of a pounding if you're not too careful. At least Fafnir will do that anyway. Leviathan would just throw some spikes down and try to seductively get you to be near her, but use the fire chip on her and you'll be fine all the same. Even though you're underwater while using it. Okay then. And also, make sure you get the fuck away from Phantom in the second fight, because when he blows up, he's taking your ass down with you. Like, be ready to just slip out of there as soon as you slice his ass to Kingdom Come. No fucking way. No fuck. What's unique to Zero One and for the whole series in terms of gameplay mechanics is the Cyber Elf system, something that took me a long ass time to figure out. So Cyber Elves, they're essentially your part system here, and in order to use them you have to be by a terminal to download them and use them whenever you're in a stage. Coming in 3 different categories, you got animals for better mobility, hackers for dealing with enemies, and nurse for health upgrades and the such. Cyber Elves will be your friends, and they're not that hard to find either, except for some that require a guide here and there. And I have to say, I don't mind them as a gimmick, but I sure as hell hate how much they made me have to go out of my way for them. I remember when I first played Zero One, I was confused as fuck about how these guys worked that it took me almost to the halfway point of the game to notice that these guys right here are also my permanent upgrades too. Oh yeah, unless you wanted to do a challenge run, these guys are also your sub tanks and your hard tanks, which, let's be real here for a second, how the hell were you supposed to even know all that? The game doesn't tell you anything about how these guys operate unless you look at the Cyber Elf menu to see their descriptions, and so my dumbass legit was wondering if I missed something in the game, but no, this is how it works it looks like. But in order to obtain your hard and sub tanks of old, you have to feed your Cyber Elves these E-crystals or energy crystals that you get from enemies. What this means is that you have to go out of your way every single time you beat a stage to go back and forth to abuse the screen crunch and enemy respawn to get all those crystals, and then pray you have the right amount of E-crystals to then download the fairy and get a sub tank or hard tank of your choosing. Do you see how tedious this all sounds? Thankfully I can cheese this with a safe assist feature and go back and forth on the menu screen to load it and gain E-crystals faster, but I can't even fathom the level of patience you have to have had when playing the original games, good lord. Another thing about the Cyber Elves too is that whenever you use them in stages, it affects your rank after completing a stage. Yeah, there's a ranking system in this game which is really there for bragging rights, since you don't get any rewards out of it I think for getting an A or S rank like in the Sonic games for example. Not something I really bothered with to be honest, but I understand the effort of wanting players to try and learn a stage here and there and beat it within a set of limitations so they can earn that glorious S rank with pride. But that's not me, you know, I just wanted to play a Mega Man game, so I did, and being the D warrior I shall, and I won't elaborate any further. Overall, there's not a lot I can really say about this game, but I really do like Mega Man Zero One. It's not my favorite of the series. As we get down into it some more, I can say that with certainty, but revising it and playing it properly through the lens of a review made me appreciate what it was trying to be at the end of the day. It's got the edgy nature of an X game and brings out a more tougher challenge to the whole formula, allowing something different alongside the mobility of Zero and its gameplay. Stages again were very fun and something that I don't think the X series were able to do before, and really gave Zero something to stand out for his own debut series as the official protagonist. Character designs and all of that, like, it's honestly great. Considering that we are starting this marathon, I can't deny that there are some qualities in this game that I find better than the others that will follow down the line, but for something new that started on the GBA for Mega Man, I still commend the effort. It is also something that I think is an acquired taste, as it could take time to understand the difficulty, which is why again, play these games on the Legacy Collection and use that as safe assist feature, because you'll definitely be doing yourself a massive favor in the end. But on to the next one we shall. Since as much time as I had fun with this one, obviously there's more to talk about, as the next time we go back into the Zero series, it's gonna be with Mega Man Zero 2, of course. My personal favorite of the Zero games, which obviously I'll talk more about that when we get to that video, but it's just fun to know that we finally got another review marathon to tackle here, and I'm just very excited to do this one as any other game and franchise out there. So likewise, I appreciate all the support you give to the channel, and especially with this review marathon moving forward. Love you all to 120 as always. Stay safe and sexy out there. Do good into the world. Have fun. Peace out and take care. Yep, I'm definitely not doing the Curry Marathon anytime soon now, am I?